the offseason generally is an opportunity for us to really look ahead to what's upcoming, right? What's coming up this fall, winter time, whatever it might be. So Duke basketball today had a media availability, Lewis.
They did.
Jon Scheyer, Kyle Filipowski, Jeremy Roach, I think Ryan
Young, Mark Mitchell.
Quite a few guys spoke to the media today. And it was an opportunity for us to really see what things might look like going into year 2 for Jon Scheyer as a head coach. And from what we heard from Tyrese Proctor said on the Brotherhood podcast earlier this week, from what we heard today, looks like what we're going to see on the floor in terms of style of play, Lewis, is going to be vastly different than what we saw them in last season.
Yeah, that's very interesting to me because they're going to have to change things up, right? So much I think of what Duke was, and Scheyer even mentioned, and we're going to hear from him in just a second, but Scheyer even mentioned that they kind of had to play with what they had. There were certain styles of play they had to really embrace, more of that mucking up, I believe is the phrase that he uses to specifically describe it. And so that team is going to continue to evolve, especially with the players that they have coming back and what they are so good in. And so I want to get started here with the sound from Jon Scheyer. The players, as they get older, they learn lessons.
Yeah.
And so do head coaches. Going from year 1 to year 2, what exactly did Scheyer learn?
As I reflect on last year, one, I think I'm a much better coach. There's things, no matter how much you prepare, until you go through it, you learn. And that's like I was being alongside Coach K for all those years. He would learn, even in year 38 or whatever it may be. And so for me, that's the first thing. I learned a lot. I think you always learn what preferences you have, whether it be how we play offense, how we play defense. But more importantly, being in tough spots. Like, we can do this. And I think back to last year and some of the games we've been in, some of the wins, some of the setbacks. I'm just proud of the program, but also our coaching staff for just keeping our heads down and continuing to work.
Confidence.
Yeah.
Is what you hear there. And not to say that Jon Scheyer was ever not confident, but there's just this feeling that you have when you get a chance to do something more than once, right? That's just life.
Yeah. I know for me, speaking from personal experience as someone who coached collegiate sports for 9 total seasons, there were things I was still learning in my 9th year coaching than what I did my first year. I mean, you're still learning stuff as you go along. So experience just comes with time. So this is where kind of the comparison that people are getting in, because we saw with North Carolina this last season with the second year under Hubert Davis, failed to meet expectations. I mean, even their own. All right, let's be honest. You go to a national championship game, you bring 4 starters back, your expectation is to get back there.
At the very least, you need to make the NCAA tournament.
Sure.
There is no denying any of that.
So, yeah, they fell well below expectations. So, okay, well, what is the expectation for Duke this season? The expectation is for under a second-year head coach with Scheyer, with 3 guys returning that were freshmen last season. So Proctor, Filipowski, Mitchell, Jeremy Roach coming back, guys like Granderson, Ryan Young, some of these other guys. There's about 7-8 guys that are coming back off last year's roster. And then you add in one of the top recruiting classes in the country. You're supplementing your roster with that too. Okay, the expectation is you got to round 2 of the NCAA tournament. Sweet 16, Elite 8. That's the expectation. You should be contending for an ACC championship in the regular season and postseason. That's the expectation for this upcoming season. But now it leads into, well, how is this team going to look on the floor with head coach Jon Scheyer in year 2? And Scheyer talked about how on the floor, in terms of their style of play, like you mentioned earlier, Lewis, is going to be different.
We feel we can be more of an explosive team in transition. We have really good guard play and very mobile bigs, but sharing the ball is going to be a key thing. It can't be about individual stats. I think we can be a team that has different leading scorers, but sharing the ball, playing fast, playing with space. We weren't able to do that as much last year. We had to kind of muck it out a little bit. We had to really beat you up on the boards and protect our rim. And again, protecting our rim this year is important. We have to do it a different way, though. But next year's team, I think the spacing, the scoring, driving, and then, of course, making the right reads, because you have shooting around you. So hopefully that opens up space for Flip, for Mark, for our guards to get in there and to draw some attention.
So this is where I think the evolution and growth of Tyrese Proctor is going to play a big role in this.
Massive. Yes, absolutely.
So we saw early in the season, still learning the ropes last season, but when we saw him actually be the primary ball handler late in the season, it saw Jeremy Roach open things up for him. And if they want to get up and down the floor in transition, now you have two guys that can facilitate the basketball in transition between Proctor and Roach. And I think that's going to be a key thing for them offensively. If you do want to play a faster pace, if guys like Filipowski, if he's healthy with his hip after his hip surgery this offseason, we'll get into that in a sec. But Mitchell, these other guys running the floor with them, having two capable facilitators of the basketball is going to be vastly important if you want to play that style.
Yeah, and I think Kyle Filipowski, I think we can, like as you mentioned, he had hip surgery, and he has said that he feels wonderful and is continuing and progressing very well after that hip surgery. But Tyrese Proctor,
yeah,
like I think he is going to truly be the very dangerous component of this team, the way we saw him progress. Mm-hmm. And
remember, he's supposed to be a freshman this year.
Yeah, exactly. He had so much youth, and the way he matured and grew over the course of the season was marvelous. Mm-hmm. I love stats. I'm a big numbers guy, and when I hear Scheyer, when I hear Filipowski, when I hear Proctor talking about one thing over and over again, it's what jumps out to me, and it's pace of play.
Yeah,
Scheyer mentioned they would like to muck it up a little bit. They really leaned on their strong defensive presence. Derek Lively was he ascended that defensive presence a little bit. The way he played, it was marvelous to watch. Marvelous twice in like 2 minutes. Look at that.
Look at you.
But their pacing, I think, suffered for that a bit. You look at their pacing here. I'm going to the let's see some of the analytics websites we got over here. Let's see, where did it go?
But part of that, as you find that, Lewis, I know part of that is that Lively wasn't healthy early in the season.
True.
Tariq Whitehead wasn't healthy early in the season. So some of that stuff they might have, and also Proctor developing.
True.
So they weren't able probably to do that in year one.
Their adjusted
Scheyer.
tempo, by the way, just under 65 possessions per game, which is nearly 300th in the country.
Oh, wow.
So they were a slow team. They depended on offensive rebounding for points. They were 35.9%. They rebounded. They had 35.9% of the offensive rebound opportunities available, which was top 10 in the country. And so now you're looking at a team that is going to have better spacing, because as great as Derek Lively was defensively, offensively, it was a bit of a black hole. So that hurts the spacing a little bit. So you're going to have more opportunities for players to drive. You're going to have more opportunities for drive and kick type shots. You're going to have a lot probably better shooting, is something that Scheyer alluded to as well. So that team, I think its identity is going to be completely different than it was last year, which is going to be really, I think, fun from a college basketball perspective to watch. How do they grow? How do they develop?